Okay, students, welcome. Hope you all are doing well, fine, and keeping yourself mentally as well as physically fit. Because students, we all know the entire country is going through a kind of a weather crisis. Country is going through a tropical cyclone. Many of our fellow citizens have lost their lives, and many have damaged properties, many have damaged whatever the kind of the unimaginable destruction is there. But students, in the meantime, we see the empathy, the kindness, as well as the kind of the resilience that Sri Lankans are well renowned for. And students, we as a nation have faced many crises over the years. Sometimes in your lifetime you wouldn't have experienced those, but in my lifetime I have experienced multiple kind of conflicts we have endured, and on the meantime tsunami, several other tropical cyclones we have experienced, and also now this. And all these times we have seen how resilient we as a nation, the Sri Lankans, are. So students, this time also we see how the volunteers are working, how the volunteers together with the security forces and also the kind of rescue teams, how they are working. And we all know, we all believe that our country can rise up again. And I know by fact, over the years, my experience, which we will do. On the other side, students, while we are helping out our fellow citizens to come out of this crisis, our personal, individual, our work towards achieving examination success should be there. And CASriLanka, by their part, they have supported the students by postponing the exam by about 1 or 2 weeks, and that also should be appreciated. Our special appreciation goes to CASriLanka as well. On the other side, students, we need to remember what is that if we individuals, we do well in our studies, in our life, in our career, ultimately it will help the organizations to do better, and also it will help the country to come out of this crisis as well. So it's the responsibility of all of us to get this additional time, to use this additional time which the CASriLanka has given for us to prepare for the exam because of the crisis that our students have faced, for the betterment and get ourselves well prepared for the examination. So do more past paper questions, do more model questions, discuss with the lecturers, and also students, do more revision of theories that we have learned. That will help you out. So while our thoughts and prayers are with our fellow Sri Lankan citizens, students, there is no turning back. We have to rise up again. How do we rise up as CA students is that to give the maximum value to the people who have affected is that we ourselves get our country back again through better education. So with that thought, students, let's move on to this time's CASriLanka common pre-scene analysis from audit, the governance, as well as risk management perspective. Students, audit, the governance and risk management perspective of this paper, of this pre-scene that we have been given by CASriLanka, has opened our eyes into numerous areas. It had opened our eyes into numerous areas, and these areas include, students, from the areas of risk of material misstatements, to the areas of corporate governance, to the areas of internal controls and risk management, sustainability and non-financial reporting. A lot of sustainability areas you would have seen, right? Those are there. And ethical perspective is also there. So a lot of sustainability, good governance and ethics perspectives are there. So what we do today students, in our program is that we are going to understand how this case pre-scene is being structured in such a way by your examiner, where the examiner himself puts our focus on different areas, and he is asking us to be prepared for those areas. So students, what I need from all of you, listen to our today's discussion and build upon based on that. Based on that, build upon kind of future forecasted scenarios, which I will also help you out. Right? But from your part, I will open your eyes. I will support you to develop the best examination answer for your paper. So students, without taking much of time, it's our duty to go to the healthcare PLC. So when I see this case study or common pre-scene, students, one thing which came into my mind and one thing struck my mind at once was that this is quite similar, this given company is quite similar in times, in a common, I would say, real world example as CASRI Central, CASRI Surgical, CASRI Group, CASRI Hospitals. Kind of CASRI Group, if my memory is correct, was started by a visionary entrepreneur, medical professional doctor called Dr. Neville Fernando. Dr. Neville Fernando was a doctor who started CASRI in sense that Central Hospital. Central Hospital in Rosmith Place, he started it. Later, Dr. Neville Fernando was associated with some more new entrepreneurship as well, Citum and things like that. On the other side, students, he himself, then thereafter he sold it to CASRI Group as well, Central Hospital. So it's similar to that. That also, CASRI Group has hospitals in where? They have a Kandy hospital and they have a hospital in Matara as well. So with that thought in mind, right, with that thought in mind, it's time for us to now discuss that. So the common real world example for the given case is that, for me, is the CASRI Group. Okay, so let's move on. So healthcare PLC. Students, I am going to first analyze this case, the given facts of this case, from the risk of material misstatements aspect. I analyze risk of material misstatements aspect again. So when you know, students, risk of material misstatements, because when you read this case, you have seen there are a lot of frauds have happened, and also students, they have implemented the new ERP system, enterprise resource planning. So through that, students, the set of financial statements that are coming up may contain errors, chances for fraud, errors, and also financial statements can contain misstatements. So when you analyze this from the risk of material misstatement area, students, very important, you need to identify what are the areas that can result in inherent risk as well as control risk. Inherent risk and control risk. Why? Risk of material misstatements means, students, the chances of accounting framework can be deviated. Chances of management may not apply Sri Lanka accounting standards properly, be it a fraudulent purpose, fraudulent financial statements, and also be it a kind of a misappropriation of asset, control issues. So risk of material misstatements means, students, how the financial reporting framework can be deviated. කොහොමද මේ financial reporting framework එක ළමයි deviate වෙන්නේ? How the financial reporting framework can be deviated, we need to discuss. Financial reporting framework එක deviate වෙන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා ළමයි අපි දැන් discuss කරන අපිට බලන්න ඕන. So a lot of related party transaction, opportunity for related party transactions are there. And also, students, we see frauds, fraudulent practices, intangible assets, all these are there. And also, students, opportunities for committing fraud, because financial statements, ERP system is new. So all these are there, intangible assets are there, so which we need to take into account. අපි මේව ළමයි හොඳට idea එක දාගන්න ඕන, chances of risk of material misstatements are there. So let's shed a light on that. The company continues to innovate by integrating digital health services. They are going to integrate digital health services. Like what? A mobile app. Sometimes a doctor can be channeled online, where doctor gives the opinion, medical opinion, through a mobile app. Through a mobile app you can consult a doctor. So integrating digital health services, investing in artificial intelligence based diagnostic. Artificial intelligence based diagnostics. Sometimes, students, when the kind of the symptoms are put into a robotic software or AI software, automatically the prescriptions can come in. Pursuing sustainability goals through green hospital initiatives. Green hospital initiatives, sustainability S1 and S2, at that point we will discuss that. So much of AI, digital, mobile app, so much of internet-based, robotics-based, AI-based developments. So intangible assets, they are involving, they are incorporating, they are doing so much of intangible assets related investments. So the point is, students, where you do a lot of those investments, but if those investments do not generate much of income, ඒවයින් ලොකු income එකක් ආවෙ නැත්තම්, you run to the risk of impairment. Those intangible assets, investments that you made, software licenses, those intangible assets related investments that you made in AI, in robotics, right? Or maybe green hospitals. If that is not generating the relevant income, students, what will happen to you? When that happens, what will happen? You will have an impairment risk. Management may not like to recognize that impairment. So when you have that impairment risk, your assets will be overstated, your profits will be overstated. Impairment. So intangible assets, the impairment risk is there. So everybody, I will share you this PowerPoint එක share කරන්න, but මෙතන ඔයගොල්ලෝ නිකන් මම කියනකොට when I'm doing this class, just write down, right? Intangible assets, impairment risk කියලා ලියා ගන්න. Impairment risk is there. So the risk of impairment, overstatement of assets, non-recognition of impairment, overstatement of profit, overstatement of assets can happen there. Did you understood, students? ඔයගොල්ලන්ට තේරුණාද මේ කතාව? Can I have your response? Did you understood? Can I have your response? The people who are joining live. තේරුණානේ? මොකද a lot of investments are happening there. Got it, no? Kalna? Thank you. Right, let's move. ඉස්සරහට. And on the other part, students, Healthcare PLC, this company is having a group structure. They have a subsidiary, right? Group structure is there because they are now going to invest in a pharmaceutical company as well. Pharmaceutical investment. So from the risk of material misstatement perspective, students, I would say existence of related party transactions, because founders are doctors, they are dominant directors, dominant characteristics. So there is a chance for existence of related party transactions. Chances for existence of related party transactions are there. So when the related party transactions are existing, there is a tendency that management may, they may not disclose these related party transactions. Management may not disclose these related party transactions. So from the risk of material misstatements perspective, students, we feel like non-disclosure of related party transactions can be there. So the same point at the exam, you just put it out to the examiner the way I say. Okay, so I'm helping you out with those as well. So there can be chances of non-disclosure of related party transactions. So your mind has to go to Sri Lanka Auditing Standard number 550, auditor's responsibility with regard to existence of related party transactions. So very important that related party relationships you have to identify, because the related party transactions will pose unique risk to you. It will pose a unique risk. Those transactions may not happen at normal market arm's length, sometimes at very low prices, as well as sometimes those will happen free of charge. So Sri Lanka accounting standards, accounting framework say these have to be disclosed, but the management may be reluctant to disclose those. So when they are reluctant to disclose those, what will happen? That will result in a material misstatement. That may result in a material misstatement. So very important that we take related party transactions, existence of related party transactions also as a risk of material misstatement in this particular case of HPL. Then students, risk of impairment due to technical obsolescence of medical equipment. Medical equipment can technically obsolete. They may use it beyond their useful life. Technical obsolescence of medical equipment, chances for impairment of an integration of CASriLanka Pharma. So CASriLanka Pharma is going to be integrated. So when it is going to be integrated, chances for impairment as well, that particular investment, because investment may incur losses. So you may have chances of risk of impairment also there. මෙතන ළමයි impairment risk එකක් තියෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. There can be a risk of impairment. Then revenue recognition. Students, Sri Lanka Accounting Standard number 15, revenue, say revenue has to be recognized based on the level of fulfillment of contractual obligations between the buyer and the seller. You know how the revenue has to be recognized, no? Now, revenue has to be recognized based on the what? Level of contractual obligation fulfillment between the buyer and the seller. The point that I want to tell you here, because this is a hospital, having a laboratory, having a pharmacy, having various other sources of income as well. So how well you are recognizing your revenue? To what extent you are recognizing your revenue? So my understanding is that revenue recognition, revenue, to what extent you are recognizing the pharmacy revenue, what extent you are recognizing the room revenue, ward revenue, revenue from pharmacy. So revenue recognition can be an issue, students, which we have to be concerned with. Concerned about revenue recognition. So revenue recognition, like laboratory sample collection, only 2 hospitals, Kandy and Mathura, are reimbursed for their actual collection cost. All other collection centers are compensated with 10% commission of the total value of laboratory tests. So revenue recognition, lamai, may be an area that we have to be concerned with. Revenue recognition එක ළමයි අපිට concern වෙන්න ඕන area එකක්. Then going concern. Going concern ළමයි, for the time being, for the main hospital, we don't have a going concern issue. If you read that, for the time being, the main hospitals do not have. But we don't know for Mathura operation, for the Kandy operation, as well as for the pharmaceutical company that they are going to purchase, acquire, whether there is a risk of going concern. So at that time, your mind has to go to Sri Lanka Auditing Standard number 570, SLAUS 570, going concern. What does SLAUS 570 going concern say? You auditors have to be on alert for material uncertainties of going concern. Maybe if a particular business unit is generating continuous losses, එක business unit එක ළමයි එක දිගට loss වෙනවා නම්, if that business unit is incurring continuous losses, if that business unit is making losses, it has a kind of a high level of gearing is so high, if those kind of situations are there, very important that the business needs to have a kind of a impact assessment, do a preliminary assessment with regard to the going concern. So going concern risk, for the time being, I don't see a going concern risk. May lamai mata going concern risk I don't see. But I feel like a particular business unit may create the going concern risk for you. So it's an area where you got to be very well prepared. Prepare වෙන්න ඕන එකක් තමයි going concern risk එක. So remember that as well, the risk of going concern. Then lamai, new ERP system coming in, the point I told you, අලුත් accounting system එකක් එනවා. What is an ERP system? ERP එකක් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? ERP means, students, different business processes, integratively they operate. Say you have cash process, procurement process, sales process, property plant and equipment process, payroll process. Those are integrated and those are operating simultaneously. Maybe integrate වෙලා ළමයි simultaneously operate වෙනවා. So what happens? If a one particular transaction is entered, say you procure something, automatically procurement module will be updated. On the other side, the final accounts will also be upgraded. So you don't need to separately maintain financial statements, because students, transaction to transaction, real-time things are updating. So ERP system, the problem that will happen is, students, if you are not integrating the ERP, modules are not integrated, say payroll module, if not integrated with the finance module, what will happen? Whatever the transactions which are happening at the payroll module will not be upgraded at the finance module. So accounts will contain errors. Payroll එකයි finance එකයි ළමයි integrate to නැත්තම්, if those two are not integrated, what will happen is, even though you perform the transaction at the payroll or procurement, financial statements will not be updated. So at that time, errors and frauds can happen in finance module. Final accounts will not be correct. So that risk is there when you have a new ERP system. the risk of material misstatements, lack of integration and chance for committing frauds. Because students, new ERP and ERP itself may not have proper controls. ERP එකේ controls නැති වෙලාමයි proper approvals, the reconciliations within the ERP itself, having firewalls among the modules. ERP එක ඇතුළේ ළමයි firewalls තියාගන්න නැති එක. All these things may impact the business. So very important, new ERP, risk of material misstatements, lack of integration and chance for committing fraud. ඒක integration එකක් නෑ ළමයි. ඒක හොරකම් කරන්න. Chances for committing frauds is there. හොරකමට ඒකේ chance එකක් තියෙනවා. So new ERP system, remember everybody in your mind. පොඩ්ඩක් note එකක් දාලා තියාගන්න මම මේ කතා කරනකොට when I am discussing this. Okay? Any questions so far guys? මේ දක්වා කරපු ටිකේ මොනවාරි ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවද? Can I have your response? Put your confirmation දාන්න බලන්න chat box එකේ. Any questions? Right? Done? Yes, Lakmal, group structure. Definitely when you have a group structure, we are discussing that, right? Where we have a kind of a group financial reporting related issues. Because students, when you have a group structure, very good point you brought in. When you have a group structure, as a group auditor, you need to issue group audit instructions. As a group auditor, you got to issue group audit instructions. So the problem is sometimes certain group audit instructions, group level materiality, those may not be properly applied. And sometimes certain losses at the subsidiary company component level, subsidiary company level, there may be certain kind of losses, certain kind of contingent liabilities that may be concealed. Group level එකේ contingent liabilities conceal කරන්න පුළුවන් ළමයි. So that particular risk is there. Very good point. So group level, having a group structure, those kind of risk will be there. Like issuing group audit instructions and also group component level, subsidiary level, associate level, losses may be concealed. That particular type of risk of material misstatements are also there. Very good point. Shall we move there? Good point, right? Then the fraud risk. Fraud risk we can't eliminate. We have discussed extensively in our class the fraud risk aspect. අපි fraud risk aspect එක පුළුවන් තරම් කතා කරලා තියෙනවා. Fraud risk. Fraudulent financial reporting is there. Why? Window dressing where financial statements include errors and misstatements can caused by local directors. Students, the problem is this. Financial statements may contain overstating of profits, overstating of asset values, overstating of revenue, income. Why? Most of the time, window dressing, creative financial reporting can impact the financial statements quality. Because senior management may always will be paid based on the company performance. They will be paid a basic salary, but on top of that, most of their remuneration will be based on what? On top of that, most of their remuneration will be based on, what? Performance of the company. So they may even at the time of a crisis, because students, remember, when this question comes in, it may incorporate weather related, cyclone related, the current crisis that we are facing in also into account. අපි මේ ෆේස් කරන ක්‍රයිසිස් එක, මේ සයික්ලෝන් දිත්වා එකෙන් ආපු ක්‍රයිසිස් එක, සයික්ලෝන් දිත්වා crisis may be incorporated at your paper. So remember, so those kind of things can impact positively or negatively to the company bottom line. So at that time, sometimes there can be overstatement of figures because one of their hospitals are located where? एक hospital का कोई locate कर लेते हैं. One is Matara, the other one is Colombo, the next one is located where? एक hospital है locate कर लेते हैं कोई. Can I have your response? One hospital is located in Kandy. Kandy is impacted, right? Kandy is impacted from this cyclone weather. So the risk of impairment, overstatement of asset values, that losses may be not recognized. So that amount of fraudulent financial reporting risk is there. So remember that, everybody, right? Eka potta kolluwe mataka tiyaganda. So in terms of that, we have an issue there. So because when your question paper comes in, it can incorporate weather related disastrous situation that the Sri Lanka has experienced maybe in your question. So at that time, risk of material misstatement coming from going concern issues on one particular unit or overstatement of asset values, that also can be there. Okay, remember. So window dressing risk, overstatement, fraud risk, that we have to expect. International cross-border investments can be there. Sometimes hospitals are investing foreign currency transaction and translation risk anyway there. Foreign currency transaction risk, translation risk that can impact. Then deferred tax provisioning, that's also risk of material misstatement because deferred tax assets, overstatement, understatement can be there. So deferred tax is an area where we have to be watch out. Then our risk of frauds we have already discussed. During the initial stages of implementation of ERP, several challenges were observed in the financial reporting process. These included manual journal entries being recorded. Manual journal entries. See, remember, manual journal entries being recorded without proper review. Ideally, there has to be a control. Journal entries means, students, adjustments to the financial statements. No. If you pass a journal entry, there has to be a proper segregation of duties. The one who is generating or recording journal entry should not be the one who is approving it. So journal entries, if you are passing, it has to be approved. Journal entry pass karna lama ek approve enno. So here we don't see that. So journal entry is being recorded without proper review. We don't see anyone has reviewed it, anyone has approved it. Kawurat meka review karla approve karla naha. Without proper review. Missing accruals, unadjusted balances, unadjusted balances were there, and incomplete financial statements. So risk of fraud is there. Opportunity to commit a fraud. So Sri Lanka auditing standard number 240. Fraud risk triangle. Opportunity to commit a fraud and also motivation and pressure to commit a fraud is also there. Such issues highlight the need for tighter internal controls. So ideally segregation of duties has to be there. Segregation of duties, that has to be there. And on the meantime, students, you got to have proper approval. Journal entries should be approved by someone. Journal entries has to be approved. Journal entries has to be reconciled. Every month end or every weekend, whatever the past journal entries should be sent to the CFO, should be reported. Has to be there. Comprehensive staff training and ongoing monitoring to ensure that ERP system fully delivers its intended benefit. So I have a serious doubt about this new ERP system because the business is facing challenges. Business එක challenge face වෙනවානේ. They are facing so much of challenges. So that has to be taken account. So ERP system side, revenue recognition side, related party transaction side, and also overstatement of assets values, going concern, I feel like risk of material misstatement is there. So you got, now I have given you the kind of necessary knowledge. You got to go and write at your exam. Knowledge එක දීලා තියෙන ළමයි exam එකේ ලියන්න විතරයි තියෙන්නේ. Okay. Then fraud risk due to ineffective controls, opportunity to commit a fraud. Now we see controls are very loose. When you have a kind of low level of internal controls and your controls are not that strong and sound, okay, control strong nattang, if it is not that sound, opportunity to commit a fraud is there. Then fraud risk, revenue recognition issues, laboratory correction and room revenue cost. So we have an opportunity to commit a fraud as well. Several persistent control issues were highlighted by external auditor. Now, what we have seen so far, external auditor has also identified. In the external auditor's management letter, several pertinent control issues were identified. When the controls are not proper, when the controls are not designed properly, when the controls are not implemented, and when the controls are ineffective. Design not properly implemented and ineffective. If controls are not there during the previous audit, these concerns were formally disclosed to the management letter issued to the shareholders. Management letter issued to the shareholders. Management letter should be ideally issued to whom? To the management and those charged with governance. To the senior management, CEO and the board audit committee. A critical weakness lies in the current patient channeling system. Critical control weakness is there in the current patient channeling system. Now all private hospitals has a channeling, no. There is a kind of issue, which is integrated across 3 hospitals. Channeling system where you have to do a pre-appointment to the doctor, the consultant that you are consulting. So pre-appointment has to be get. After your payment only the doctor will come and see you. The auditor noted inconsistencies and gaps in transaction logging, use authentication, password protection, use authentication of a user, cyber security issues, and audit trail maintenance, particularly in the front desk, the people who are taking the patient the appointments, front desk, and online appointment booking modules. Online appointment also there is a kind of weakness. These weaknesses create gaps where appointments could be recorded without correctly matching the related income. What is that? You can log in appointment without collecting the money. Ideally, what should happen? Ideally, once the patient pays only, appointment should be logged. Patient pay karot vitara lamai appointment එක log වෙන්න ඕන. Without payment, you can't make the appointment. So here what happens? Without making the payment, you can log an appointment. So that's an issue. Or where staff might bypass, override the normal approval and checking procedures. This creates a high risk of cash losses or even possibility of funds being misused. So probability of a risk, fraud risk is there. So loose controls, ideally there has to be student system integration. Computer application controls. IT application controls has to be there. Application level, business process level. When I'm telling, just write down when you get hold of this copy, presentation copy manage. So IT application level controls has to be there. Where appointments should be, control should ensure appointments, doctor appointments should be logged once the payment is received and collected and booked. Only. But here what happens? Employees can bypass. So what will happen? They will collect money and pickpocket that money while putting the patient appointment. Until such time that the patient gets the appointment, patient don't have a worry of or problem of where the money goes. where the money goes to the pocket of the cashier or the company bank account. Patient doesn't have a problem until such time he gets the doctor appointment. But here we see that can happen. So ideally proper controls has to be there. Daily reconciliation between number of appointments. Reconciliation should be there between doctor appointments actually made and the cash collected. Daily reconciliations has to happen. Control. Approvals has to be there if there is any deviation. Deviation approval තියෙන්න. If not, this is not good. Frauds can come. Why? People can bypass, put an appointment, pickpocket money. Can happen. So proper reconciliation has to happen. Segregation of duties has to be there. Okay, Kalana, good point, right? Due to regulatory and compliance breaches in terms of healthcare, cyber security, there can be unrecorded contingent liabilities as well. Cyber security issues also there, because students, what? You are dealing with people, patients, medical history. Now imagine a celebrity or a renowned politician. If his medical history being exposed, what will happen? End of the business for this particular hospital, right? So you need to have proper cyber security controls. Cyber security controls. You got to have proper cyber security controls. If you don't have proper cyber security controls, then it will result in frauds. So procurement process, customs practice may include fraud risk. Procurement, because this is a hospital, they may purchase and acquire medical equipments, drugs in bulk and massive level. So at that time, there can be procurement related frauds. So ideally, you may write the tender process has to be followed, guidelines should be there in procurement, and also students, proper supplier vendor registration should be there, vendor approval should be there. You have to be very careful on reputation damage and compliance risk and regulatory risk. Medicine or medical equipment overdose, contamination of drugs, patients may die. Patients may die, which has happened in our hospitals, no? Right? Maybe due to a poor quality drug, a patient may die. So your procurement practice has to be very important. Procurement practice is very important. So proper quality checking, control has to be there. Tender process has to be followed. Right? Samples should be checked. Very important, those controls has to be there. So once you get hold of the video, just write down, right? That will be your game changer at the exam. So those kind of internal controls with regard to procurement practice, quality testing, sample checking, supplier registration, verification, students, all are very important because you are buying items on bulk. Reputation risk, regulatory damage, contingent liabilities can be there, students. People will sue you. If something harm happens to a patient can sue you. If that is there in courts, it will be decided. There will be contingent liabilities. There may be claims for damages and maybe, students, legal actions may be taken. So contingent liability, existence of contingent liabilities can be there. Fair value estimations create inherent risk as well because they will have assets, the properties will be there, fair value estimates. Audit committee needs to be effective and financial statements need to be evaluated by the audit committee. Audit committee has to review financial statements and business valuation and overstatement risk, fair valuation and the goodwill. Goodwill on acquisition also, students, should be tested for impairment regularly. Impairment test karannath on lamai. So the points, control lapses. See, Okay, so the risk of material misstatements lamai. So fraud and control lapses can be there. So if you do not commit yourself, commit if you are not committed for controls, because this is run by doctors, no? Doctors are medical professionals. So medical professionals will always be mindful of their medical operations. So that's when students, the audit committee has to play a vital role. Audit committee has to play a very vital role in terms of ensuring financial statements are reliable, frauds are prevented, financial statements free from material misstatements. It's the responsibility of the CFO as well as the audit committee, as those charged with governance, the audit committee. So fraud prevention is the management's duty. Controls has to be there. So CASriLanka framework CASriLanka framework 5 elements and 17 sub elements. Adda gila balagan. Look at it. Control lapses. See everyone. Occurring at the channeling stage, the hospital is exposed to an even more severe consequence in cases where revenue is not collected from the patient. That risk is also there. The relevant actual revenue may not be collected from the patient. The hospital is still obliged to pay the consultant fee from its own funds. You may not collect from the patient, but you have to pay from your money. This means the hospital not only loses the income that should have been collected, but also incurs an additional outflow, effectively suffering double loss. What happens? You may not collect from the patient since you don't have proper controls, but you may pay your consultants. Revenue not collected, pay your consultant. Revenue may be going to the cashier's pocket. Control issue. So there has to be proper reconciliation daily. And your systems has to be integrated one another. IT, IS audit is needed. Otherwise, frauds can happen at that point. Revenue collection itself, very important now. Cyber security risk, ERP system. So you need to have proper cyber security risk management. Firewall, password protection, then students proper virus guards, email security, phishing, ransomware protection has to be there. And since you have databases has to be protected. Data security is also there. So firewalls has to be there. Maybe whatever external emails coming in should be filtered and quarantined only. You have to get to your intranet. Very important. And your software has to be updated regularly. IT security officer, CISO, Chief Information Security Officer has to be there. So ERP system which has been in operation without significant upgrades. ERP is without upgrades. Now shows limitations and ability to support modern hospital operations. ERP is not having the capacity to run. The lack of regular system updates means that critical security patches, compliance related enhancements and user interfaces improvements have not been implemented. Proper user interface implementations are not there. Regulatory risk, the point I told you. If let's say a patient gets impacted because of poor drugs and poor quality healthcare, regulatory actions can happen. That will impact your going concern even. So it will have a going concern risk. Lamai, from that angle you need to evaluate, right? The points I tell you will definitely help you in writing your answer. So here you have a regulatory risk that will have a going concern risk as well. So new regulatory requirements and patient service expectations are also there. Furthermore, the absence of real-time integration with modern payment gateways. Ideally, students, people will pay with what? People will pay with credit cards. So you need to have a payment gateway as well. Payment gateways results in delays in confirming online and cash-based transactions. Payments often need to be manually cross-checked with bank statements, increasing the chances of mismatches and errors, and it can have frauds as well. So payment gateway, they really have a problem with revenue collection. So SLFRS Sri Lanka Accounting Standard number 15, revenue, the 6 steps in revenue recognition. To what extent contractual obligations are fulfilled. There is a problem with regard to revenue recognition. Material misstatements can happen at the revenue recognition, that particular area. Fraud risk. Similarly, the lack of integration between ERP system, patient channeling module, billing systems are not integrated. Whatever happens at one module may not be identified in the other module. එක module එක වෙන එකක් ළමයි අනිත් module එක identify වෙන්නේ නැහැ. So lack of integration, frauds can happen. For example, consumables or pharmaceutical issued during patient appointments are not always automatically captured. So fraud risk is also there. So this fragmented process often leads to discrepancies. That's why I told you reconciliations is a must. Reconciliation is a must. Otherwise frauds can happen. Fraud and compliance risk, these integration and upgrading gaps have a direct impact on timeliness and reliability of financial reconciliations. Reconciliations do not happen timely. Ineffective controls, it's an issue. So accurate accounting records, management financial statements, all are at a jeopardy. Then they have a key audit matters I have identified from the auditing perspective. Auditing perspective, there are certain key audit matters like complexity of information technology, IT, because ERP itself is having issues. So impairment, errors, data integrity issues. The paper. Okay, that's the support that we are giving you, right? You can write it as it is. Right? Complexity of information technology, IT, ERP is not effective. Then impact of a changing pricing methods, pricing modules, and introduction of new products and tariff regimes. Revenue recognition issues, overstatement. Revenue can be overstated. Summarize I have summarized here. Different revenue recognition policies for rendering services, right? Revenue recognition issues will be there. The dividend declaration and things like that all will have a risk of material misstatements as well. The risk of impairment, very important, which we discussed. The introduction of the upgraded technology system is expected to require capital investment of 80 million. 80 million capital investment, CAPEX investment is needed. So this CAPEX investment may be subjected to impairment. Not only CAPEX investment, lamai, maybe one particular hospital at Kandy or Matara, or maybe whatever the subsidiary that they are going to purchase will have a kind of issue. So that particular CAPEX investment may be subjected to risk of impairment. In addition to this capital outlay, the company forecasts that changes in working capital of approximately 20 million per annum will be necessary throughput for the 3-year period. So these kind of risk of impairment, risk of frauds, those are there. Okay. Then corporate governance. Risk of material misstatements. So far, have you identified what we have discussed? Is it clear to you, lamai? Api katha karapu tika clear? Right, so when you get hold of this presentation, I will ask Infinity team to share this presentation among you. Make all share and when you get hold, watch this video again and jot down those. These will come at your exam. Exam එක මේ වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකද මේ ඔක්කොම ළමයි දාගන්න, right? Okay. Just see whether we covered all. Okay, let's move to corporate governance. Now, listed public company. Listing rules. Students, I will share the listing rules also with you. Listing rules share. As a listed public company, you need to have adhered to the principles of good governance, corporate governance. So these principles of good governance and corporate governance is a must. So ideally, when we read this particular case, healthcare PLC, students, there are certain corporate governance areas, good governance related areas that comes to my mind. Corporate governance areas, good governance related areas that comes to our mind. The listed company, so corporate governance itself is relevant. And 3 independent directors were appointed to the board to enhance transparency. Independent directors, 3 independent directors are there to enhance transparency, bring diverse perspective, and ensure accountability. Among these changes, a new leadership structure was also formed. So independent directors, students, are the directors are independent? Are they clearly disconnected from the operations of the company? Independent directors will definitely provide objective judgment to the company affairs. What does the independent directors do, Lamai? Independent directors will provide a objective judgment to the company affairs. ඒගොල්ලෝ ළමයි කම්පැනියට දෙන්නේ objective judgment එකක්, independent judgment in company decisions. So what will happen? Executive directors will always have a conflict of interest, no ළමයි. Executive directors, since they are performance based paid, they will always try to take excessive risk. So at that time only non-executive directors and independent directors has to what? They have to provide into the corporate decisions their objective unbiased judgment. They should always identify the risk aspect of the decisions that the executive directors are taking. So their independent judgment is needed. So you need to evaluate whether these independent directors are putting that independent judgment, or are they just the rubber stamp directors of what the executive directors are taking. If they are just emphasizing, or if they are just endorsing the decisions of the executive directors, these independent directors and non-executive directors are ineffective. So they need to ideally have to evaluate the business decisions and provide an independent judgment. ඒගොල්ලෝ ළමයි මේවා evaluate කරලා ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ objective judgment එක දෙන්න ඕන. Has to happen. So 3 independent directors are there. So you need, at the exam, you need to see whether they are effective or not. Effectiveness. මේක ගත්තා මතර ලියා ගන්න. They are effectiveness. Are they providing independent judgment? ඒක තමයි බලන්න ඕන. Dr. Prabhat Jayasinghe was appointed as the CEO of HP, responsible for executing the company's operational and strategic goals. So being the CEO, he has to run the operation, achieve the strategies and goals and objectives. He has to hit the targets. Dr. Prabhat Jayasinghe. එයා තමයි ළමයි target එක ගහන්න ඕන. On the other side, the chairman and the board of directors, they have to provide their leadership, strategic leadership. Dr. Senaka Atukorala became the chairman of the board, providing visionary guidance and maintaining strategic oversight. So Prabhat and Senaka, being the CEO Prabhat and Senaka being the chairman, should have 2 different responsibilities. Prabhat in delivering strategies, then Senaka should deliver leadership and vision. So chairman and CEO should have 2 separate segregated responsibilities. මේ දෙන්නට ළමයි responsibility දෙකක් තියෙන. Both of them have 2 different distinct responsibilities. That we have to remember. The appointment of an independent directors and a separate CEO empowered the organization to maintain professional rigor. Yes. The board decision making may be dominated by few directors. දැන් මේ අපිට මෙතන තියෙන පුළුවන් එක ලොකු issue එකක් තමයි ළමයි. Those are doctors, no? They will dominate the board. If they dominate the board, and if the non-executive directors and independent non-executive directors, if they do not provide their objective judgment, the dominant directors can overpower the decision making, and at that time they will have a conflict of interest. Board may not be effective. We know my corporate governance say board has to be effective. No, board will be not effective when the board is dominated by few key individuals. Make a video. This video, students, you rewatch at least 2 to 3 times, right? Me video ka detum para balanna. So board has to be having proper balance of power balance of power between executive directors and non-executive directors. Then only board will be taking objective decisions. Lamai. Chairman's independence and strategic focus needs to evaluate. Risk of dispute among the directors, associate company, hampering. Diverse employee backgrounds is a positive sign. Employee background, there are chartered accountants, doctors, that's a positive sign, right? We need diversity. Maybe men and women at the board, more experienced directors and lesser experienced young directors. That diversity. When you have diversity, Lamai, the decisions can be analyzed. Decisions can be analyzed from different angles. Diversity තිබුණොත් decisions එක angles වලින් analyze කරන්න පුළුවන්. Then unrelated diversification, right? So those kind of things are there. Then the corporate governance. Again, Buanka Pereira seems to be over 70 years. Buanka lamai අවුරුදු 70 වැඩි. Buanka is a distinguished fellow member of CASriLanka, born on 10th August. Buanka brings wealth of experience in financial oversight and governance and is expected to continue his current role, ensuring consistency in the audit committee and leadership. Lamai, this Buanka is over 70 years of age. He is the audit committee, no? He is in the audit committee. In the audit committee. So when he is at over 70 years and working in the part of audit committee, we need to see whether he is effective or not. Should he be replaced? Because as per the listing rules, when the directors are getting older, 70 years and above, we have to be very cautious. Sometimes they should not be in the board sometimes. So me එයාගේ age එකත් එක්ක easy suitable, right? I don't think he is suitable. ඊට වඩා young එක්කෙනෙක් අපිට ගන්න පුළුවන්. So question that at the board as at your answer. So whether he is fit for that job. මෙයා මේ job එකට fit with age 70 plus. An audit committee member, Dr. Shaluka Piris, is an independent director born on 12th September 70 and well-regarded legal practitioner specializing in commercial law. Why a legal practitioner is in the board audit committee? Audit committee should be whether he may ensure compliance. Compliance again ensure කරනවා නම් හරි. But the point, right? Whether he is suitable. බුවන්කට නම් ළමයි මගේ ලොකු කැමැත්තක් නෑ. I don't have because he is 70 years and above. Sunil Gomez, an experienced independent lawyer who currently serves as one of the independent directors of the group, has been identified to assume the role of Chief Executive Officer of Healthcare Candy. Candy එකට දාන්න යන්නේ lawyer කෙනෙක්. Right? Independent lawyer. Candy Hospitals PVT. His appointment is expected to bring a fresh leadership perspective and drive much needed operational and financial reforms to improve hospitals' sustainability and long-term performance. So they are going to appoint a lawyer wage, right? Then Candy Hospital. We have to question that appointment. At the examination paper, you need to see whether he has the relevant experience. Do he has the experience? Experience that you got to question at the paper. Right? Need for risk management committee. I personally feel, students, given the current economic, weather crisis, due to the current weather and crisis situation in the country with regard to the recent risk issues that has happened, I would personally prefer the company has a risk management committee because they are facing risk continuously. Risk they are facing multiple risks, right? Regulatory risk, compliance risk, healthcare business risk, then the kind of weather related tornado, cyclone and flooding related risk, earth slips and landslides. So several research reports and audits have highlighted substandard medicine batches. Lamai bala behet substandard medicine batches. Now we have a bala behet case, right? Substandard medicine batches enter in the supply chain due to lax regulatory enforcement. So very important, they have substandard medicine batches. So reputational risk, compliance risk, legal risk, in contingent liabilities, all these risks are there. So ideally, chief risk officer has to be there. CRO කෙනෙක් ඉන්න ඕන ළමයි. And risk management committee has to be there. One of the most pressing issues affecting both private and public healthcare providers is the deteriorating quality and inconsistent availability of pharmaceutical products. So risk management committee has to be there. So these systematic flaws in the pharmaceutical sector have directly impacted the operations. Then they need to have HR recruitment policy. Nomination committee එකක් ඉන්න ඕන ළමයි, recruitment HR policy has to be there. Moreover, the growing frustration among the government sector doctors. Doctors are frustrated. Government sector. Some doctors are poorly paid, working conditions are not that suitable. Further strain the healthcare ecosystem, overburdened by poor working conditions, lack of career development. So doctors are not satisfied. So at that time, students, it's a fraud risk, negligence risk. Negligence in medical healthcare sector, one of the major risks that we face is the negligence. If a patient gets impacted, that risk is there. So eye openers are given to all of you, and these are the answers that are coming to you, right? May line nege answers develop karan. Develop your answers in this line. Then need for a risk management committee, fraud risk factors. That's why I told you multiple fraud risk factors we have discussed. So the company needs to have a risk management committee because of regulatory issues which we have discussed, the business risk that they face, going concern risk, regulatory pressure, compliance issues. Patient affordability has also become a concern. So all these, the overall impact of gradual deterioration of financial performance of HP with particular stress on the regional hospitals. This Kandy and Mathura operations going concern risk. Mama kiwa kiyala mataka tiyaganna lamai. Remember that. Okay. So මේ video එක 3-4 පාරක් බලන්න. 2 to 3 times watch it. කළා when you get the PowerPoint, just jot it down. PowerPoint එක එනකොට ලියා ගන්න. It seems that the audit committee has a lot of scope of work to perform due to the nature of the business, the regulatory, fraud, compliance risk factors. So audit committee has to be strengthened. Composition of audit committee. Remember students, audit committee chairman has to be independent non-executive director. And audit committee has to be comprised of non-executive directors only. Audit committee cannot have executive directors. Remember composition. Chairman has to be independent non-executive director. Audit committee should consist of non-executive directors. Audit committee cannot have executive directors. Not only audit committee, remuneration committee should also be like that. Chairman has to be independent non-executive director, should be fully comprised of non-executive directors. Executive directors should not be there. Diverse mix and skilled directors need due to diversification action. So maybe students, you need to have proper digital related chief information systems officer, chief information systems security officer. Digital risk is there. Cyber security risk is there. Put those points in your answer. Answer ke mein points daane lamai. Existence of good governance code, code of conduct එකක් අවශ්‍යයි ළමයි. Code of conduct has to be there because doctors, the healthcare workers, the nurses, they need to have a proper code of conduct. How they treat patients, negligence prevention has to be there. Number of business units with tight deadlines, making difficult to manage operations. Risk of bribes at the procurement, medicines purchase karna bribes, kickbacks, regulatory action, cyber security risk is also there. Business face multiple level of risk, hence effectiveness of internal audit department. Internal audit department එක ළමයි උත්තරයක් ලියන්න පුළුවන් ඔයාට. Need for an internal audit department. Very important. Propose a chief compliance officer because healthcare industry regulated, compliance is a must. So chief compliance officer, need for a chief compliance officer is a must. Multiple regulations are also there. Chief risk officer has to be appointed with risk management. CRO, chief risk officer has to be there. Audit committee should be effective with independent non-executive director should be audit committee chairman. That's also very important. Senior independent non-executive director has to be there. Minimum 3 non-executive directors, so out of all, 1/3 should be non-executive. Board balance has to be ensured. Minimum 3 or 1/3, whichever is higher from the board should be non-executive. The video guy balanda එතකොට ළමයි ඔයාලට තේරෙයි. The board meets 12 times a year, discuss strategic matters. Additional committees ළමයි related party transactions monitoring committee. Related party transactions monitoring committee has to be there. Risk management committee, nomination committee and remuneration committee. මේ ටිකත් අපි propose කරමු. Ideally, performance of board and the managing director should be evaluated annually. CEO's performance, board performance, annually evaluate. Internal auditor, external auditor performance evaluate annually. Board performance, has the board took necessary correct decisions. Annually evaluate the board performance. Board balance needs to be established. Senior independent non-executive director, you can propose, right? Board එකට strength එකක් වෙයි ළමයි if you appoint a senior independent non-executive director. So you may consider that as well. Board subcommittee should be strengthened. So ownership structure, Senaka Tukorla is having 70 million shares. Chairman Dr. Sanjay De Silva, 40, Director Sunil Madhavage. So one question that come in your examination is, students, is that composition of the board. So remember whether the chairman and CEO having two different roles. If those roles are amalgamated, ineffective. And minimum of 3 or 1/3, whichever is higher, non-executive directors has to be there. ඒක පොඩ්ඩක් බලන්න මේකදී. තව මේක exam එකේදී මේව ටිකක් add වෙයි. So CEO is Dr. Prabhat Jayasinghe, Buanka is the independent director who is the finance professional. Likewise you have. So then students, internal controls and risk management. Look at it. Okay, right. So students, internal controls and risk management, because of this, right, this company, that now fraud risk, cyber security risk, compliance risk, contingent liabilities, legal actions risk, which we have discussed, business risk, going concern risk, very important that we need to have controls and risk management. Lamai, always refer to the CASriLanka framework, where you have main 5 elements and 17 sub-elements. Main elements 5, sub-elements 17ක් තියෙනවා. So CASriLanka framework is an essential point where we have to start our discussion. CASriLanka framework එකෙන් පටන් ගන්නවා. So හැමෝම CASriLanka framework එක බලන්න. ඒකේ control environment එක. Control environment. Policies, the procedures, right? How the top management thinks about the business. Control environment, very important. Commitment to competence. All these are important. So start with CASriLanka framework. You are answering a CASriLanka framework model එක දාන්න පටන් ගන්න. Effective communication needs to happen between company and the employees to avoid further frauds. දැන් හොරකම් වෙලා තියෙන ළමයි, communication has to be there. Actions has to be taken. Action should be taken and it has to be communicated. Action එක අරන් ඒක communicate වෙන්නත් ඕන. From the founding partners to the nursing staff and technicians, Dr. Senaka emphasized building a culture of learning, compassion, professionalism. HP invested heavily in training programs and knowledge sharing initiatives, believing that human capital was its most valuable resource. So that kind of proper control environment from the top management is there. Agile decision making needed in the business due to rapid technology changes. So standard operating procedures has to be there. Each and everything. කොහොමද මේ දේවල් කරන්නේ? How a surgery is done. How a channeling service is operating. Standard operating procedures has to be there. Customer service, standard operating procedure has to be there. Procurement, standard operating procedure has to be there. මේවා answer කරන දාන්න ළමයි in your paper. Autonomous and agile decision making may lead to frauds. හොරකම් වල risk එක මේකේ තියෙනවා. So we discussed, no? Since the business is in the healthcare industry, artificial intelligence, AI, robotic process automation and blockchain supports decision making as well. So what we discussed, cyber security risk. So cyber security controls has to be there, the firewalls, the antivirus, segregation of duties, right? Proper staff training on all this stuff has to be there. Lack of segregation of duties, fraud risk is there, which we discussed. Bribes can happen at procurement and regulatory compliance issues can happen. Negligence, නොසැලකිලි මත්කම නිසා ලෙඩෙක්ට මොන හරි වෙන එක. Negligence can happen ළමයි. HPL is going to do a comprehensive business strategy and operational evaluation, identify areas of improvement, due diligence of company, its operations. Cyber security is another area which we have to have. So I would propose a Chief Information Systems Security Officer, CISO, because of data and cyber security issues, as well as Chief Risk Officer as well. CISO as well as Chief Risk Officer. And internal audit department should be sound as well. Internal auditors sound when known. So major risk factors: macroeconomic, healthcare negligence, regulatory compliance, market competition, lack of funding, information technology, financial management, vendor supply, human resource, environmental and sustainability. Then aluth meka thamai environmental risk because of the environmental crisis that we have faced. Done. Need to have audit committee and risk committee comprised of healthcare and finance professional and diverse perspectives. Ethics, very important. Now from the ethical perspective, from the ethics perspective, what type of areas we have to be concerned with? Ethical perspective එක මොන areas ද බලන්න ඕන ළමයි. Sustainable business, labor practices, customer approaches. Business එකේ sustainability, because sustainability S1 and S2. The amount of greenhouse gas, we will discuss that, but ethical behavior, how you treat, speak to people, avoid negligence. So that. So code of conduct is a must thing. මේ business එකට ළමයි code of conduct එක must. Fraud risk, lack of business ethics, need to establish a disciplinary process for breach of ethics and conduct. Disciplinary process. Commitment to competence, proper accountability has to be there. Accountability. කාගේ හරි වැරද්දක් වුණොත්, maybe medical professionals. Accountability. There has to be proper accountability. Maybe students, that may result in dismissal of a particular healthcare professional as well. Accountability, part of ethics. Conflict of interest where directors may occur. in foreign investments to be done. Conflict of interest එකක් තියෙන්න පුළුවන් ළමයි. Some directors will have personal dealings. Conflict of interest where personal interest will conflict with the business interest. That is also a risk. Need audit committee involvement in ensuring ethical behavior, cyber security, customer privacy handling. Data can be lost as well. The founders introduced a model that was based on core principles of quality, affordability, and innovation. Quality of healthcare, they revolutionized Sri Lanka's healthcare sector at a time when the overcrowded government hospitals were there. These individuals have revolutionized it with private healthcare service. Need to have a medical code of conduct, which we discussed. Proper code of conduct and disciplinary action procedure has to be there, and that has to be communicated as well. Eka communicate karla තියෙන්න ඕන. Proper communication strategy and equitable treatment of all stakeholders has to be there. මේ හැමෝටම equitable treatment එකකුත් දෙන්න ඕන. Has to happen. Then lamai, we are coming into the last part, sustainability and non-financial reporting. Why it's important? Now sustainability S1 and S2, I will share you a kind of a supplement. Supplement share karnawa. Why it's important? Now they are going towards a greener healthcare. Now see students, environmental calamity that we are facing. Ayi apita mehema environmental issue එකක් එන්නේ. Climate change. මේක ළමයි climate change එක මාර issue එකක් නේ. It's a massive issue. අපි මේ face කරන්නේ climate change එකනේ. How much amount of we say that Sri Lanka is a kind of a what do you call free from natural disasters කියලා කිව්වට නේ අපි කියනවානේ we don't have earthquakes, we don't have what do you call this other kind of climate disasters. But still students, these cyclones and tornadoes and things like that, like this flooding and earth slips, these are climate change effects to Sri Lanka. So sustainability, climate related sustainability, where while we are surviving, we have to save the planet. So we need to reduce our carbon dioxide emissions. We need to reduce our wastage. As a hospital, they have to reduce their wastage. They have to reduce their impact on carbon. Pollution should be prevented. So single-use plastics has to be reduced. Things that will result in global warming has to be reduced. So they need to set KPIs on that. And in the annual report, they have to disclose those. The amount of wastage reduction, the amount of greenhouse gas emission, CO2, carbon dioxide emission, the reduction they have to report in their annual report. Since from 2025, Sri Lanka has adopted S1 and S2. I will share you the supplement. We need to report those. Okay, so this is an important area, Alamai. Now they are going for a green hospital where net emissions should be zero. Okay, so sustainable renewable energy, solar power usage, very important. Reduction of plastic and single usage plastic. Reduction of pollution. Water, used water has to be treated and discharged to the environment. පාවිච්චි කරපු waste water ළමයි, waste water has to be treated and discharged. මේ වීඩියෝ එක ආයෙ බලන්න ළමයි. අපි මේ කරන වීඩියෝ එක නැවත බලන්න. Has to be done. Sustainability and climate related disclosures is a must. The amount of greenhouse gas, amount of wastage reduction, amount of heat reduction, amount of noise reduction, amount of toxic acids, because it's a hospital, right? Toxic acids and chemicals that they have used, reduction should be made, KPI set. Those has to be provided in your annual report. As the company grew and evolved, Dr. Senaka and his board demonstrated that effective governance could serve as a pillar of sustainability. It marked a strategic shift towards greater transparency and accountability. Staff from diverse regional cultural background, very important. staff not only from one area, regional, different regions, different cultural, ethnicity, races, communities, religions, different. So they have an inclusive culture. Disclose that in the annual report. Do that. What is your background of staff members? You got to do it. ESG reporting has to happen. Okay. Staff from diverse regional cultural background work in the company, making it an effective social and sustainability reporting. Has to happen. So you may provide KPIs of say or KPIs ටිකක් හදන්න ළමයි. What is the regions the staff is coming? Their ethnic backgrounds or their social background, cultural background. Has to provide. The amount of reduction of plastic wastage, tons, kilograms of plastic wastage reduction, month on month, year on year, you can report that in your annual report. Your climate related gas, greenhouse gas emissions, what's the reduction? Carbon footprint reduction. Instead of staff traveling to work by their own motorbikes, staff traveling to work by their own cars, you can give them buses. If they give them buses, what will happen? 40 vehicles will be removed from the road and one vehicle only. So that will be a kind of a positive aspect with regard to sustainability S1 and S2. So you can disclose that at your annual report. So how did you do that කියලා දාන්න පුළුවන් ළමයි. So මේ කියන්නේ මෙහෙම දාන්න paper එකට. Staff needs to have a cultural understanding where the company foster inclusive approach. KPIs, as I told you, මම කිව්වා KPIs ටික දාන්න, right? Plastic reduction, how the community work you have done, transparency, how you have ensured, workplace inclusiveness, how you ensured, carbon dioxide reduction, emission reduction, how did you do that? Put that as a KPI and disclose. KPI should be monitored and measuring social and cultural aspects. Company positively engage with the community. The amount of community work you have done now at this kind of a crisis scenario, the amount of work you did. Sometimes you can open your doors as a hospital for the innocent people who have affected from these floods to come and get the treatment, and you can disclose that at your annual report. Okay. Sustainability initiatives need to be measured with KPIs to monitor the performance. Annual report should be under integrated reporting format. Under integrated reporting format, it has to be there. Sustainability is a key aspect of the company as it is going for a greener healthcare. මේගොල්ලෝ ළමයි greener healthcare එකේ යන නිසා. And affordable healthcare to people of various parts of community. Affordable private healthcare. That's also part of their ESG, community impact. හැමෝටම ළමයි affordable, right? හැමෝටම affordable healthcare එකක්. That's a what? That's a kind of a good sustainability reporting that you can have. To ensure sustainability, මම ලියනේවා ළමයි එහෙම මම ගිහලා paper එකේ දාන්න, right? To ensure sustainability, I will come to your answer. To ensure sustainability, HP also focused on regional talent development. Oh, the community impact. So you can put it as a KPI. The amount of new recruits you have obtained from the regional branches located. New recruit, not from Colombo but from outstations. The amount, the number of head count of people, number of head count of employees who have been recruited from those areas. In 2017, company undertook a significant step towards environmental sustainability and patient safety by investing in a modern hospital waste management system at its Colombo flagship facility. The strategic initiative was not only driven by regulatory compliance but also by broader vision of reinforcing quality healthcare delivery through responsible environmental stewardship. That's why I told you wastewater management. You can put it as a KPI. Wastewater management එක KPI එකක් විදිහට දෙන්න පුළුවන් ළමයි as a sustainability measure. Where the amount of water treated, the liters of water treated and put it back to the environment. The ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ ළමයි medical wastage, chemicals and all those things you have to treat. Right? Then only you have to discharge that. So amount you can put it as a KPI. So Kalana, that's my answer, right, for your question. How to apply waste management compliance at S1ST para as per standard. So put it as a kind of a amount of liters of water that has been treated and put back to the environment. Amount of polythene and plastic recycled. polythene plastic recycle karapu pramane, the kind of kilograms of polythene and or tons of polythene and plastic recycled. Or how did you reduce the greenhouse gas like carbon dioxide, the amount or tons which has been reduced. A KPI is done lamai. Okay. Designed with the international standards in mind, incorporating segregation of waste, say segregation of waste like let's say food waste එක වෙනම ගන්නවා ළමයි, plastic and polythene differently, and let's say surgical waste like syringe, katu, surgical waste differently, you take that differently. So waste, segregate the waste. Color coded bins, sterilization of infectious materials using autoclaves and a centralized incineration process that ensured minimal environmental impact. So you can put it as a KPI. Amount of sterilizations you have done, the kind of quantity of waste that you have treated and again given. Biomedical waste was classified into hazardous and non-hazardous streams and treated accordingly. Right? So medical waste management. So make a ton වලින් දෙන්න පුළුවන් ළමයි. The tons of medical wastage recycled. Put it as in that way. The central system also included real-time monitoring and compliance tracking, making it one of the first of kind in the country. So liters of water treated, tons or kilos of plastic recycled, tons or kilos of hazardous medical waste treated, or kind of people, staff trained, number of staff trained, training hours done, carbon dioxide emission reduced, KPIs lamai, sustainability KPIs. Put it in that way in your answer. So KPIs as per the Environmental Ministry of Health standards, you can put it as like same level of waste management excellence has not yet been achieved at Mathura and Kandy hospitals. So regional hospitals, you have not yet achieved that. So one thing, you have risk there where you are not compliant with the regulations, but on the other side you can improve there. ඒකටත් මේක implement කරන්න පුළුවන් as risk management proper. So as a risk management proposition, you can implement this into regional hospitals as well. While these facilities have successfully integrated many of the medical and patient care standards, the standards are below Colombo. So there can be then Mathura and Kandy hospitals, the standard of treatments to patients are below Colombo. Colombo level එකට වඩා treatment standard එක අඩුයි. So that's a risk. So there can be a kind of a situation where in those locations there can be medical negligence. A location වල ළමයි medical negligence එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. So that's a risk that can happen, that you have to be worried at the exam. Because the amount of treatment that is happening is very less. So be careful on there. මෙතන බලාගෙන පරිස්සමෙන්. එතන risk එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. මම දැම්ම ඔයාලට දෙන්නේ can happen. So at that time there can be negligence. එතකොට තමයි අර ටික වැදගත් වෙන්නේ. At that time risk management audit committee, risk management committee, chief risk officer, compliance officer, their work is important, very important. Branch waste management remains pressing challenge. Branch කියන්නේ Kandy and Mathura waste management not up to the mark. So negligence can result in loss of patients' lives, regulatory actions, or else reputation damage as well. So that's why I am proposing a risk management committee. You need to take quick drastic actions. Lack built-in systems for biomedical waste segregation, autoclaving, and secure disposal of mechanisms are not there like Colombo. So when you are disclosing that as per the sustainability standards, you have to be mindful of that as well. So you need to put how you are improving that as well. Make improvements කොහොමද වෙන්නේ කියලා කියන්න ඕන. This gap poses a risk not only to the environment, public health, but for the long-term sustainability as well. So strategic upgrade to the and implement a de-sterilization waste management unit. So de-sterilization, where you have a medical hazardous waste lamai, or katu, what do you call these syringes and these All these things are medical hazardous waste. Maybe lamai say X-ray or maybe chemotherapy and things like that are medical hazardous waste, should not be disposed to the normal environment. So that particular autoclave and sterilization facilities are not there in Kandy and Mathura. So in your sustainability report, you have to mention that, and you have to show how the improvements are happening. So they are investing on that, so how the improvements are happening. But on the other side, you have a regulatory risk as well. Waste segregation training programs, conducting continuous staff training should also be there. Integration of waste management into quality control system, these internal controls has to be there. You need to put KPIs to these two locations, Kandy and Mathura. KPIs on waste management and all these reductions has to be there. Green procurement policies, you need to have invoices should be going directly to the through your ERP, it has to be there. Paperless work has to be there. Digitalization, that will reduce your waste. Collaboration with local authorities, partnering with local councils, Nagara Sabha, local councils, that has to be there as well. So these improvements will help sustainability achievement for the organization as well. So from the strategic perspective, last part, strategy perspective, they want to become healthcare dominant partner, but on the meantime, they have serious weaknesses in their controls, serious weaknesses in their sustainability. When they are reporting, those has to be addressed as well. That's that, Lamai. So what I need all of you, I will ask Infinity team to share my presentation. Watch our recording at least 2 to 3 times. Maybe recording ka detum para balanna, and with the presentation get a printout and write down those, and that will save your life at the examination. And in the meantime, everybody, if you have any queries, you may always, you have my contact numbers, you can always get those sorted as well. And our revision program is also there, students. You can watch those videos. We are giving you the necessary knowledge in this scenario. We will be opening up your mind into much more perspectives, because our pass rates are so high at strategic level examination. You can also be part of that particular special bunch of people who are getting through the examination. So in this difficult time, students, as a country which we are facing based on the cyclone with that impact, I wish you have the necessary courage to navigate this particular time period, but focus on your studies and education. Wish you all the best, students. Do your studies. In the meantime, my telephone lines are always open for you. Discuss these points with us. So thanks a lot. Do your studies. Wish you all the best. Thank you.